Oh, hi. Nice to have you with us. My name is J.B. Eckert. I'm a writer and a reader and a thespian and a little bit of everything. Mostly a kind of a short, goofy old guy. But I read stories, and I got something special for you. It's an invitation for you and your family to join me and sit down in front of the television set, watch a story about Christmas, as told by people you wouldn't ever expect. These are all original stories written specifically for the folks at Landmark Center and the people of the state of Minnesota. Come on, join me. It'll be a nice night. Get the popcorn, get the kids, come on, around the fire and listen to a Christmas story. One you have never, ever heard before. All right. So this story is called A Tumble of Trouble. It's December 21st, 11 p.m. at night. There's a storm outside. It's raising snowdrifts 1,000 feet high. Winds are yelling, pummeling my tree. Sleet nicks my single frosted oval window. But curled up with my tail around me, beneath my lamp, a good book in my lap, I'm ready for anything, except for the shadow that crossed my window. Moments later, covered in snow and sleet, the shadow leapt into my residence. And oh my, was she beautiful. A pair of gorgeous big brown eyes, demurely trimmed whiskers, and at the end of her long sculptured snout, the cutest little black nose. Unlike my brown and striped coat, here, her entire exquisitely proportioned structure was covered in snow-white fur. I fell out of his sleigh, she stated in a quiet, cold-induced, quivering voice. I said pensively, trying not to show her arrival had startled me. You got a cell phone, she asked. Madam, squirrels don't look, she began, sitting on my cornstalk couch. I work for the Jolly Old Elf, and I need to get in touch with routing ASAP. The Jolly Old Elf? I questioned, leaning forward. Santa Claus, you rural bumpkin. She lashed back at me as she stood and began scrutinizing every corner of my cozy abode. I was finishing some preliminary flight work and fell out of the sleigh. And why are you looking at me that way? You never seen a squirrel before? Well, yes, I had, I responded as pleasantly as I could, but never an all-white squirrel. Well, that's the color of squirrels in Claus Land. Claus Land? I questioned. At the North Pole, she explained. But everyone knows there's no North Land at the North Pole. And if there's no land at the North Pole, I continued, there's no squirrels. Well, she curtly interrupts, swirling her fluffed-out tail around her body. That's where I'm from, and I work for Santa Claus. I'm one of his special gift seraphs. She scans me. I sit back on my haunches and clean the dirt from under the claws on my paws. She shakes her head, shrugs her shoulders, stands up. Let me introduce myself, I said, rising up to appropriately greet her. My name is Claude. I'm a gray squirrel. So let me get this straight. You tumbled out of Santa's sleigh, I began. We hit a house peak or a chimney or something, I don't know. I was unbuckled at the time, head down, organizing stuff in my shoulder bag. And then, bang, I was out of the sleigh, and boom, I'm in the biggest snowdrift I ever saw. And the sleigh kept going. Santa doesn't have time to waste or go back, her explanation began. He's got a schedule and a meticulously laid out route so that he can visit every child. Yeah, but the sleigh and the driver, I theorized, they must have probably not noticed me gone till they hit Vegas, was her distressed reply, and they won't have any idea where they lost me. So, you must have been someplace close when you landed. I was completing her story. You saw my light, and here I am, she stolidly affirmed. End of a tragic story. Wow. You want a peanut? No, she slams me a verbal reply and punctuates her response with a stamp of her furry hind foot. I want to contact the sleigh and tell him come back to get me. Even more than that, I want my shoulder bag. Of all the things in Santa's sleigh, that's probably the most important. More than the toys? I asked naively. For some, more importantly than the toys, Claude. Will you help me? She looks directly at me, those large brown eyes beseeching. I mean, you know the area? Well, yeah, I reply. Then she's on her feet, heading for the exit. Well, can you see well in the dark? I ask. Well enough, she calls back. I begin my plea to wait for the sun, but she will not be persuaded. You stay, she decrees, stand-ups, white fur tail around her. Santa charged me with getting what's in the bag to those special people. I'm out of here. And with that, she was out the door. And then there was a scream. Oh, and it was close. And then there was another one, a terrifying, horrible scream. This time it was louder and closer. The vision in white hurtled back through the opening and into the safety of my hollowed-out tree home. She was shivering in fear. Cat, I said, lives in the biggest house near the forest. Hates most everything in the forest, but cat's here always. Maybe we should wait, she began. I nod affirmatively. I wonder what her name is. December 22nd. Snowblowers struggling to heave heavy, wet snow and ice from suburban driveways are the sounds that awakened Claude and his mysterious white-furred visitor that morning, December 22nd. Still dark, but Claude's visitor is already on her feet, preening her fur, staring at the outside black through Claude's only window. Care for a peanut? I offer the all-white, delight impatiently preening at the window. Peanuts are not nuts, she replies. He searched his stash and came up with some pistachios. She took one, touched it to the tip of her nose, tip of her tongue, and held it to her nose, took a deep breath. Finally, with a eulogy about pistachios' few calories and nearly absence of fat, she gobbled it up, and all the rest of them, too. First thing we got to do, I began, kneeling on the floor opposite her, is to figure out where you and the sleigh parted company. The floor of my hollowed-out residence was smoothed over, compacted mud, so with my sharpest front claws, I began to scratch out a map. In the middle of the floor, between the two of us, I carved a tiny circle, and that's this tree where we're at right now. And this island, and then I grabbed some moss from the wall and plopped it close to myself. Water surrounds the island. And then I etched a wide squiggly line around the moss. Now on your side, I said, making a series of claw marks close to her, are the humans, houses that are close to this tree. And the biggest of those houses is the one in which the cat resides. Never heard anything like that, and she gave a little shiver. Now, my tree and the island and the water are surrounded by a forest, whole thing. And the forest is surrounded by homes. When I struggled out of the drift, she began, the first thing I saw was the light from your window, and it wasn't very far from where I landed, so I'm thinking, her voice was becoming excited, her words were becoming faster, that all my stuff must be scattered near that snowdrift. Couple of hours, we should have it all collected. Hey, Claude, you got any peanuts? The voice came from outside. And before I could identify, in stumbles my friend Harry. He's a flying squirrel. Invaluable when you're looking for something to eat or being a watchdog for things that might be stalking like hawks or foxes. Or, Harry notes with emphasis, cats. Yeah. Harry, my friend, I began, let me introduce you to... And then I stopped and looked at the whiteness before me. I don't even know your name. She gives me a slight bow, sits back, and softly announces, Sophia Anna Rodentia. But you can call me Soar, she says, first letters of my name. Soar, Harry repeats, mulling the words in his mind. I love to fly, she replies, giving Harry a wink. Of course I can't, but oh, how I'd love to. Soar, Harry deliciously repeats her name again. The rays of the bright, cold, yellow rising sun were sweeping clean the dark silhouette dimensions of early morning and exposing the shapes and angles and colors of the multitude of houses that ring the forest. Bang, whoosh, the sleigh is gone, splush, I'm in a snowbank, Soar audibly concludes the story of her arrival to Harry. And my shoulder bag, my emergency locator, my glasses, all over the place, Harry supposes. All over the place, Claude and Soar affirm. Well, maybe they'll come back looking for you, Harry suggested. They don't even know where I got bumped out. And if I can't find my emergency locator, I'm just going to have to wait to catch Santa when he stops on Christmas Eve. Oh, well, maybe that's best, Harry brightly offered. Do you know, Soar abruptly interrupted Harry's euphoric musing, how long Santa spends at each house? Santa's got 24 hours to deliver all those presents. No one ever sees him because he's at each house only a fraction of a second. A fraction of a second, the male squirrels begin. How can he get off the sleigh, grab the presents, because, she interrupts abruptly, because he's magic. I've only seen him in action once, she said. I was in this town, Aberantagou. It was Christmas Eve. And suddenly, dropping out of the clouds nearest to the town was the reindeer, Santa, and the sleigh. No noise. Not the old sleigh creaking or the reindeer breathing. Nothing. They circled, spiraled down toward the house at the far end of town, and there was a flash of light above the chimney at the farthest house. And then, faster than you can say the town's name, Aberantagou, a wave of continuing flashes occurred over each house as they got further to where I stood. And then they were over me, and then they were at the end of the town behind me, over the final house. And in a flash of light, above the last chimney, I saw Santa, the reindeer and the sleigh. He waved, and then they all shot straight up into the sky, and they were gone. Then, I guess I better find her bag, was the unanimous call as Harry, the lady white squirrel, and I charged out of my residence, ran along our branch, leapt to several more branches, which brought us in leaping distance to the first house in the development. From the top of the tree to the roof and a jump, but we all made the leap, and then, looking down into the yard, we could search for a depression or something that might have fallen from a passing sleigh. If we find any of those things around here, Soar observed, we know we're in the right spot. She jumped down onto the snow-covered outdoor picnic table below the roof of the house we were on. Sitting back on her paunches, she surveyed the yard, looking for any dark hole in the snow, but there was none. So we bounded across this yard, over the fence, and into the next. The sun was up now. So were the neighborhood dogs and the little humans. While Soar looked in the snow-covered ground, I watched for anything coming at us across the white yards or from above. Yeah, our buddy the hawk hasn't eaten for a few days, Harry told me. So you guys, we gotta be careful. I don't know how many back and front and side yards we surveyed, but I gotta tell you, I really have never been as tired as I was that night when we returned to my house. We finished our supper of peanuts. Well, Harry and I did. Soar had a few pistachios I had left. Well, today's effort was not successful, I summarized, but Harry perked up. You know, we talked with other squirrels in the neighborhood. And the mice army as well, Soar added. Even met some chipmunks, I added. But the bottom line is, Harry declared, word's spreading. By tomorrow morning, every squirrel, mouse, chipmunk, dog, hawk, fox, and cat, Soar inserted, will be looking for my stuff. December 23rd, Soar, Harry, and Claude crowded around the rough map scratched in the middle of Claude's floor. Harry began. So we looked on Claude's side of the pond yesterday. What if Soar came flying in from the other side? That's what I think we should start today. Well, first things first, Claude countered. We'll search the forest first and meet in the middle. On the island of the crusty old fox, Harry added. Yeah, good idea, Claude endorsed. Now, Soar and I will head toward the island in two different directions. Claude pointed toward Harry. You do some aerial reconnaissance from the whole forest, right, left, forward, and then watch out for the cat. And the hawk, Harry reminded. And then we'll meet at the island. And at that, the three parted and by various routes started searching the forest toward the island. The sun was directly above them when the three rejoined on the shore opposite the island in the middle of the lake. The nasty, mean-spirited old fox was lolling, sprawled out on the flat roof of a large bird feeder right in the middle of the island. Soar, with all her beautiful white squirrel fur, merged with the snowdrift that was right in front of the crusty old-timer. He couldn't determine the distance or the difference between she and the snow. She asked if the old guy had seen anything. Harry motioned to Soar to move away from the fox. Instead, she moved a little closer, and the old fox slowly and menacingly started to rise up on all four, preparing to capture whatever it was that was speaking to him. Claude and Harry together leapt from the shore where they had met, scampered across the frozen water that encircled the island, charged up the slope toward the bird feeder, each grabbed one of Soar's front paws, and pulling her off her feet, ran straight toward the fox. So fast and so unexpectedly, the old renard fell backward off the bird feeder so deep into the snowdrift, he disappeared. Claude and Harry, pulling Soar, never stopped. Minutes later, all out of breath, the trio burst through the tree line to see the human houses. A lot of them. In the forest, it had been easy. Harry could climb a tree and leap off. While gliding to another tree, he would survey the land beneath. But here, there were no big trees, and climbing drainage pipes to the roof was difficult and slippery. The three conferenced on the picnic table in one quiet backyard. Sun started to go down, Claude sorrowfully observed. We haven't even covered a small percentage of the yards and the roofs. I know what we can do. Harry excitedly swung around to confront his two companions. Claude, he ordered, you hug Soar, and Soar, you hug Claude. What? Was Claude's and Soar's communal response. Hug, Harry said. You'll see. And with that, Harry ran past the two, jumped off the end of the picnic table, glided a few feet, only to crash in the snow upside down and spread wide as the extra skin on his sides would spread. He's a target for the hawk, Soar whispered incredulously. Hug, Harry ordered frantically from the snow. The hawk won't see Claude because he's cradled in Snow's all-white fur, and he won't see Soar amid the snow on the picnic table. Soar looked at Harry. But you're going to get some altitude, Harry shouted back. Shut up and hug. and from above came a terrifying scream. Then a black-winged missile dove into sight. It spiraled toward the yard and the prone squirrel lying quietly on the snow. Another horrible scream. A black wing passed over Soar and Claude. A grasp, and Harry in its clutches. The howl, the hawk bolted into the sky. The white and gray squirrels slowly separated from their embrace. Hawks and squirrels are not buddies, Soar stated, her face awash with concern. Well, that's usually, Claude affirmed, separating a step or two from Soar, but not those two, he quietly noted. They're friends? She looked stirringly at Claude. You knew and you didn't say anything? Enjoyed the hug, though, Claude smilingly acknowledged as he dove off the end of the picnic table. Who wouldn't have had the courage to ask for one myself? And with that, Soar chased after him off the end of the picnic table, into the snow, and across the clean, untouched whiteness of the backyard, only to be stopped by a call from above. Found it, Harry shouted, still hanging in the claws of his buddy the hawk. Follow me, he ordered, and leading the two squirrels from above, led them deeper into the maze of human houses. Minutes later, the three sat on a low fence, looking down at a very large rectangle of untouched snow. The rectangle was enclosed on three sides by the fence, and a tall three-story building with a lot of windows and a sign reading Setter Home After School Learning Center, and another, hanging at a falling down angle, read Christmas Party Today, closed the rectangle's fourth side. Yesterday, Hawk told Harry, some cat was digging in the snow. Three leapt down from the fence and loped across the white toward the cat's excavation site. Halfway to the site, an amplified bell rang out. The trio stopped. Doors along the length of the building swung open, and what seemed like hordes of huddled humans, big, little, and in between, poured out onto the smooth, untouched white field. The three retreated rapidly back across the smooth field, vaulted to the top of their original vantage, and watched as countless human feet obliterated any sign of the cat's initial dig. And then, almost as quickly as had become, the Christmas party revelers were gone, leaving a field of frozen furrows and upturned piles of snow and ravines and holes, an expanse of complete disorder. Harry absented the others, walked to the corner of the building, and he was looking like he was having a conversation with a hole in the snow. Whatever was going on didn't last very long. Harry was back, and the three began looking for some kind of place for shelter for the night. And they did find a spot in an unused nearby doghouse. Claude found a particular partially full bag of doggy treats in an upturned garbage can. They were out of the cold, huddled together, fur fluffed out. Wasn't as cold as it could have been. December 24th, that's Christmas Eve. It was still dark when a cadre of mice squeaked the trio awake. The rodents had found Soar's bag, and it was full of all her stuff. That's who Harry had been talking to, Soar solved as she clambered over companions. Overhead streetlights gave enough illumination for her to see and follow the mice. Down the street, round the corner, along the front of the three-story after-school learning center building, around the end, and with a leap over the fence and onto the churned-up snow-covered field. But where to go? The mice had disappeared. No. There. 3, maybe 4 leaps in front of her. They had found her bag by tunneling under the snow. 3 bounds and Soar was where the mice were. She leaned forward under the opening. She could see something black against the white. Sore backed up, preparing to attack the snow with her front claws. But she never had a chance. She was suddenly above the opening, flying. She felt something sharp around her chest and abdomen, but now she was higher, and she heard flapping. She twisted as best she could in the grasp of the intruder to see what it was, and it was what she feared the most. Hawks! Not supposed to be doing that now, Claude said to Harry. The two had chased after Sore, and now they were sitting atop the fence overlooking yesterday's snow rectangle. Yeah, that's supposed to be a special treat, Harry affirmed as both continued to watch the bird and squirrel wing off into the slowly brightening morning skies. Bag ain't gonna move itself, bag ain't gonna move itself, came the squeaking mouse orders from the hole in the snow where Sore had been. Easier said than done, Harry observed. The sun was just above the western horizon as the pair approached Claude's tree residence. Think we should surprise her? Harry asked as the two squirrels stopped and disconnected themselves from Sore's bag, which they had dragged all the way from that snowy rectangle through the forest to Claude's house. She's probably had enough surprises for the day, Claude cautioned. You guys are the best, she called down. Let me help you with the bag. Before either realized, she was on the ground, wriggling herself into the over-the-shoulder strap and leaping with the bag up the tree into Claude's house. By the time the boys had climbed to the gray squirrel's dray, Sore had already opened the bag and was in the process of identifying the chattel she had spread on the floor. And as they entered, she gave them both a huge smile. And then she rose and ran to embrace each, knocking everybody to the floor. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she repeated. I've never had a gift like that. Hawk flew me to places. I can't tell you what we saw. It was wonderful. We even saw you guys struggling with my bag. You really are something special, she said, gazing at both with admiration. And then her attention, she turned to her bag. Everything is here, she stated, scanning the items. And then she stopped, reached down, picked up her bag, shook it, turned it upside down, pulled the lining out, and then pointed to various scuff marks. Are those teeth marks? She looked at the two squirrels. Yeah, we met a dog, Claude began. Big and mean, Harry descriptively added. Dog got the bag, Sore surmised, and both male squirrels nodded assent. Shook it. Everything flew out, Claude continued. Sore looked again at the floor, then at the brown and gray squirrels, and with trepidation decided, my emergency recall button is missing. I guess it looked like a bone, he must have thought, Harry described. And then he bit it, Claude answered. Sparks, though, flew out of his nose, Harry described. Hair on his whole body stood up, even on his tail, Claude concluded. He bit my emergency recall button, she began. In two, nodded both male squirrels. Sore looked at the gray and brown squirrel. But we collected all the pieces, Harry pridefully stated. In Sore's mind, she quietly began to comprehend what that dog action meant to her. Without the call being sent telling Santa where she was, she had only one chance to make sure those special gifts get to Santa and that he finds her to take her back home. Only one chance. And that one chance came in a flash of light, a spark, an instant. She looked at her two male counterparts. Tears began welling up in those big brown eyes. Claude started haltingly, but if we could put some kind of sign on the roof of the building where you'll be waiting. Sore lifted her head, wiped away the tear with her paw. Yeah, she said slowly and quietly and positively agreeing. Yeah, something you wouldn't expect to see on the roof. Maybe we can figure out which roof and which house you're going to be on, Claude continued. That one's easy, Harry proudly inserted. Got that all figured out. It's one of the tallest of the humans complex. Even has a doggy portal. That was, however, one thing that the trio had forgotten about: the day. It was Christmas Eve. The humans in Harry's select neighborhood were preparing for a big night. That meant that lights in all the homes were lit. Cars began arriving and never stopped arriving and departing. And children were running and calling and laughing, and adult human beings were walking and grinning, and the dogs and the cats were out. And right in the middle of this whole housing plaza with all its activity was the tallest house, the house Harry had selected. 3 squirrels decided against entering the house through the doggy door. It would have led them directly into people. But there was a tree near the home. Wasn't tall, only a few years old, but a leap to the roof was possible. The trio waited until dark had completely replaced the sun. But even then, their route to the tree was circuitous and dangerous. Backyards, avoiding lighted houses and people, crouching along sidewalks, leaping over, crawling under fences, evading prowling dogs, darting along the tops of porch railings, scampering across low roofs. They arrived, finally, at the tree. Time was short. They still hadn't figured out what to attract Santa's attention. The squirrels gathered at the base of the tree. Okay, soar first, Claude suggested, up and then across that limb. Did you hear something? Harry whispered. The 3 stopped and listened. It sounded like breathing or even muted purring. Together they looked up. A pair of green eyes looked down. Then a terrible cat screech. "Doggy door!" yelled Claude. 3 squirrels bounded across the snow-covered yard, the zipper clothes bag bouncing along behind. Claude went left. Harry went right. Soar went to the doggy door. The cat bounded after Soar. Soar and her bag, bang, swoosh, through the door, sliding across the entrance stone, finally stopping just a squirrel's length from the Christmas tree in the living room. Bang, behind Soar, doggy door, and a scowling, angry cat. Soar froze. The cat's eyes focused on the white, unmoving squirrel, and it began moving forward, emitting a low, guttural portent of terrible ends about to occur. The young female human turned her tear-filled eyes from the letter she was reading to the entrance noise of cats and squirrels in the front hall. She stared at the tableau before her, trying to understand what the cat was about to do to the squirrel, but before she could speculate, the cat leapt. A puppy in the little female human's lap was instantly on the floor, yipping loudly, charging the cat. The cat turned and ran, not because of the puppy, but because a much larger barking dog was charging down the staircase, intent on chasing the cat. Out the doggy door went cat, followed by 2 yapping dogs. The young human rose from the sofa, walked to the white squirrel with the tattered black bag. Soar was terrified. Now, cats were one thing, but humans from outside Claus Land, what would she do? "Don't be afraid," the little girl said quietly, picking up Soar and her bag. "My room, you'll be safe there." Upstairs, Soar and her bag were placed on a far edge of a desk below a large double-wide upstairs window. The human girl sprawled herself on top of her bed and quietly cried. "How can that be?" thought Soar. "It was Christmas Eve. A time when everybody's happy and bright. A tap came at the window above Sora. She turned, and there, outside her window, were Claude and Harry, sitting on their haunches, looking in at her. Sword looked at the two outside, shrugged her shoulders, lay down, pulled the bag close to her. She watched the two males outside. They jumped around, climbed on the window, sniffed around the edges. There was no way in, and Sora realized there was no way out either. And then she noticed, looking at the sky behind them, off in the distance, a spark of light. And then another spark, and then another spark. And this flickering wave of light was flowing toward her. The two outside turned to see it too. The flickering wave swept up to them, and then it covered them. And moments later, only the black, starry night remained, with a moon seemingly much more full and brighter than before. Sora began to cry. Come on, you guys, we got work to do. The voice rang in the minds of the three squirrels, who immediately brightened up, turned, and gazed at a sleigh, a great reindeer, and Santa Claus. Soar, Santa called in their mind. You got that list and those special memories. Soar sat back on her haunches, mounted a big smile, held up the tattered black bag in her paws. Well, yeah, but I mean, how do I? And before she could finish her question, Soar found herself in the sleigh, outside, next, sitting to Santa. Magic, Claude whispered to Harry. But it wasn't magic that got you here, though, was it, Santa? Harry called. Whatever bit that recall button sent the general location, Santa began. The pieces you guys scraped up and put in Soar's bag signaled us right here. Santa leaned back, ready to call the reindeer to rise into the night sky, but Soar stopped him. The human girl in the house, Santa. And she turned to point toward the window to the girl on the bed. She's crying. I mean, can't you? A couple of days ago, an albino squirrel, all white squirrel that girl had befriended and cared for, passed on. And before Soar could say anything, Santa, looking at the white-furred squirrel sitting next to him, continued, I'm looking for a replacement to send her. And he looked at Soar and said, got any suggestions? Claude and Harry looked at Soar and Santa, and then they began jumping and singing. Don't forget me, cried Hawk as he landed on the back of Santa's sleigh. And with that, the sleigh and Santa and Soar, in a spark of light, were gone. And the Hawk was hanging in midair. Give you guys a lift back to the forest, the Hawk offered. And with a squirrel in each claw, the three friends flew off to the forest to remember forever a tumble from Santa's sleigh. Give you guys a lift back to the forest, Hawk offered. And with a squirrel in each claw, the three friends flew off to the forest to remember forever a tumble from Santa's sleigh that caused a whole lot of trouble, but that made a Christmas like no other.